How many of you grew up or you currently live in what you think of as the country? How many of you? A good 50%, I'd say. How many of you know what this is? If you were here last year, you probably do. Some would say it's a rifle. Some would say it's a bolt-action rifle. Some of you that are really into your guns and you know them well would say that this is an H&R 22. I would say that this is the very first gun that I ever shot. My father gave this to me when I was 12 years old, and it has been in my closet for the last 45 years. And every afternoon I would come home and I would go down into a little pit that we had on the backside of our acreage, and I would shoot. Well, one of the rules was I had to buy my own bullets. And back then I think a box of 50 was on sale at JM Fields for 59 cents. So I struggled saving Coke bottles until I saved up enough to get a couple of boxes of shells, and I'd go down there and shoot. My dad never had to tell me not to shoot people. I was raised to know better. I was taught that this was not the enemy. I was taught that this is not something evil. That's what I was taught. I was taught that this is a tool that its value is determined by the hands that hold it. And so, I grew up in that environment. I grew up, if I could take you back to 1978 in the north side of Marion County, you probably would have seen me at 12 years old driving a truck very similar to this one right here. Back in those days, it was cool, and I thought every kid grew up the way I did. I thought every kid grew up with the same understanding of what our rights were. I thought every kid grew up driving an old beat-up truck that his father traded for a window air conditioner so that I could have something to learn on. I learned how to paint. I learned how to do body work. I learned how to weld. I learned how to do everything mechanical on that old Jeep. And I just took for granted that all the kids around me had the same opportunities. But what I want to propose to you, what I want you to think about this morning is that we're living in, for lack of a better term, a gun-shy America today. We're living in a society that doesn't understand a lot of the things that some of us country boys and country girls grew up around. And so when they're approached with it, it's very normal for them to say, oh no, we're not going to have that in our town. And it proposes to us a fight, doesn't it? And so many times it's a fight that we try to do, and we try to do it in a manner that pushes them away even further. So here's our problem. We live in an age where people have been programmed to believe that it's safer and that it's better to have more rules than fewer. Our society has been programmed to believe that. How many of you are familiar with the Ten Commandments? Most of us. Well, Jesus took it one step further, and he boiled it down to two. He took the 10 Commandments and said, you know what? They asked him, well, what's the greatest commandments? He said, well, that's easy. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. And the second one, as like it, love your neighbor as yourself. Basically, if you'll just do those two things, everything else will take care of itself. So he took 10 commandments and boiled it down to two. But do you know that currently there are 13,000 new bills before Congress to be considered? Just in this 2-year session. 13,000. That since World War II, we've enacted between 4 and 6 million new words in law every 2-year session. When are we going to boil it down? When are we going to get back to the basics and stop feeding the lies that we need more and more rules? Do you know that today, more new home buyers will buy homes in developments that are governed under a homeowners association? By choice. We move into neighborhoods knowing that they're going to be HOA governed, not government governed, just a self-inflicted government that tells us when to cut our grass, what color our house is allowed to be, whether or not we can put up a fence, what kind of grass we can even plant before we cut it. So what we've done is we have programmed society to believe that we cannot exist without someone dictating to us how we're supposed to live every second of the day. And people have bought those lies. And bought them to the point that even though we need someone else to tell us how high we can cut our grass, we want to be the ones to tell someone else how high they should cut theirs. What we face in the gun-respecting community is that we're outnumbered 3-1 by people who have never shot a gun, believe it or not. Now statistics say there's somewhere in the neighborhood of 40+% of households have a gun, but not everyone's shot one. We're outnumbered 3-1 to the number of people that have never handled a firearm in their life. And so many of them are scared to death that it's going to do something that they can't control, that it's just going to somehow jump out of the closet and do something wicked, evil, or violent. And I don't want to say that mockingly. I want to say that so that we understand that this is the society we live in. That some people, there's 3 different perspectives that people have on gun ownership. Some of them have negative views. Perhaps they've had bad experiences. Perhaps they've been in a traumatic event. And so their perspective and their view of guns and gun-related issues is a frightening thing to them, and so they hold negative issues. Some people have cautious views about it. They don't necessarily want a gun, but they do believe that they need to be regulated, that everybody else can't be trusted. And so we need to have better gun rules, more gun laws, and more things to regulate gun control in America. Then we have many that just have uninformed views. And every decision they make, every thought that they have concerning guns, gun owners in America, is based on what they see in the media. And they're uninformed, and they haven't taken the steps to really get to know. So I mean, like many of you, I grew up in a time when I drove a pickup truck at 16 years old to high school, and I had a shotgun hanging in the back window. And there wasn't any cameras in the parking lot back then either. It was just normal. But the thing is, and here's what I want to challenge you with here today, is that it's up to you to bridge the gap. It's up to you to, if you come across with a dirty, hairy mentality to your neighbor, guess what that's going to do to your neighbor? They're going to shut you off. They don't want to hear what you have to say. If you look at them with the look that says, "Do you feel lucky, punk?" It's probably not going to make very much headway with your neighbor. But they maybe never experienced life outside of a third-floor apartment building. And so their experiences may be completely different than yours or mine. We've got to have 2 things in this country today, and that's responsible gun ownership, that every person that owns and handles their firearms safely understands it's their responsibility to be an example to the rest of the public. You are the example. Thank you. Secondly, we have got to elect government officials and some of them here that are running for office. I am thankful that we have candidates and politicians that are not ashamed to stand up for our Second Amendment. And we've got to elect these people and put them in place so that we protect what was intended to protect us. Kevin, thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, brother.
I think together with you and with like-minded people, we're going to keep America safe, we're going to keep America free, and we're going to move this country forward in ways that it's never seen before. So, thank you guys.